that's been on my mind a bit is the regimentation that from birth you are put into. Just remember back when you were a child. And my childhood was different probably than most of yours, although I was still in it. You're scheduled out from birth. Via time. And from the get-go, you're put into this regimentation, schedule system, planning system, and that's what your mind adapts to. You're essentially given everything that's opposite of the now moment. You're not ever given that. That comes around at some point. It gets into you at some point, but that's after all the programming and scheduling has occurred and your body has been patterned out. Your body-mind has been patterned out. It's developed itself into the structure. And there is fierce resistance externally, not so much internally after you've done it for a while, but externally there is fierce resistance to any opposition of the time scheduling. And the whole point is to keep your mind outside of the present moment. That's the whole point. It's incredibly simple. Whatever you're doing right now, your mind is out there. That's the point. That's the control structure. That's the entire thing. Once you learn that you have the option to either stay in the moment or project forward and backwards always, then that becomes a discipline. Even when you're talking, when I'm talking using language, I can stay present and the ideas still flow and they are still cohesive. And at a certain point it becomes a bit gamish because the mind is so used to flying off to there and the other place and dad's house and all these ideas that you have that aren't in your current present moment. That's what your mind is conditioned to be pondering all the time, because the present moment doesn't contain like titillation, so to speak, like all of the imaginative properties of our mind contain. Now, imagining of future and past and experiences, things like that, possibilities, that's not exactly the same thing as staying present, because staying present is essentially releasing the control aspect to an extent. As long as you're here experiencing a physical body, you can never totally release the control aspect, but you can tilt it back toward the purity of what is. And that's the biggest challenge for most people once they catch a scent, a glimpse. The first reaction is usually horror, because the mind immediately contemplates, oh, it's all projections and it's all ephemeral and I am stuck here. And how long will I be stuck here? Is this eternal? That was my reaction to it. And the safe place to the conditioned mind is going back to projection land. Going back to planning. Going back to your 85-year plan that everybody wants you on. Going back to retirement. Going back to savings accounts. Going back to jobs and work and school and economy. That's the safe place. And that's always there. I don't know if it will always be there, but for the most part, as long as you're having the body-mind experience, it's always there. Because the mind wants things to play with, always. It doesn't like stillness very much. It's the spirit that likes stillness. It's the spirit that is stillness, and it's just a matter of identification, whether you're identifying with the mind and the brain activity, or you're identifying with the actual presence, which contains all of it. The spirit contains the whole thing. And most people, when they get to that spot, they don't know what to do with it. Like I've said before, everybody says, what's next? What do I do now? What do we do? What do you do? If planning and goals and scheduling and regimentation is all pieces of this control system that is doing this to the world, that's producing depravity, that's producing pollution, wars, hate, anger, angst. It's always it's uncomfortable. And the way the system is designed, it makes it even more uncomfortable. If you just had a bunch of people hanging around and staying in the present moment and creating always, this idea of the present moment being like yucky, or what do I do with it, or there's nothing to do, or we can't move, all these kind of thoughts that come up, they aren't gonna be so prevalent because everybody else is doing the same thing, and it's flow state rather than projection mind state out of the present moment. It's difficult to do this when everybody else is in the control mechanism. And everybody isn't in it. There are people that are to varying degrees of outside of that. But they are not the norm, they are unusual, and for the most part they are not in close physical proximity to one another, so they feel alone with it. And as well, that state doesn't, generally speaking, produce money. Going and sitting and meditating under a tree doesn't produce money, and we need to eat. So there's a bit of a battle going on between the present moment and allowing it to manifest naturally, and planning and fixing the world's problems. To tie this back into what Aug was saying about the cube, or the the reality machine, the experience generator, and why it's so hard to escape this realm. Well, one, okay, memory wipe is a big problem because we don't know exactly what we're escaping, and we don't know exactly where we're going to be going afterward, and that goes right back into the planning mode. And it's very easy to fall straight back into the control system. It's like the Chinese finger trap. The harder you pull your fingers apart, the more the little deal grabs on to your fingers. And that's what he's saying with that's what he's saying about the machine reading your mind, knowing your plans, and taking those plans and adapting them out to serve its own needs rather than to serve what you're actually trying to do with your intentions. So in that aspect, the mind is a bit of a trap, and bringing it back to Castaneda and the idea of the archons, the mind was given to us, it's not ours, and it's fear-based. So what do you do with a trap system that takes all your plans and mutates them to serve its own needs as they're happening to you? Tell me how to plan out of that one. How do you do it? How do you plan your way out of that one when every single plan is taken and altered? This is just a thought experiment. I'm not, like always, I'm not saying this is hard truth or this or that. This is just my thought process and my own experience of dealing with this system that we're in. And I've tried many things. I've tried everything I can think of mentally to grasp what is or isn't happening, and it's not easy because fundamentally there's nothing to grasp. The second you grasp a thing and you start playing with it, that thing takes over your system, your mental system, and it does it very subtly. And when you're trying to manipulate, when you're trying to control, it can be difficult, and it is difficult because the control aspect is illusory to a degree. It's not completely illusory, but it's largely illusory. And that's what meditation is. That's the whole point of meditation. Because the more you zoom in, the more you close that little band. Normal experience is wide bandwidth. Okay, you're in the present moment, but you have the overlay of you have the boat wake going out mentally. It's not physically. That's why we don't see trails coming out of our butts while we're walking around. It's a mental overlay that makes the experience cohesive, even though it's ephemeral and non-material. It's a difficult thing to grasp, but that's what it is. And the more you zoom in or focus in on the present moment, the less room there is for fear manifestations, because fear manifestations require time, and they require projection forward and backwards in time. So the more zoomed in you are to the present moment, you're cutting off that possibility of fear projections. It has to be done internally. You have to examine your own self. You have to know thyself. You have to perform experiments on your experience and see. You just see it, you move and adapt. The planning out, the scheduling out turns you into a machine. It's as simple as that. It turns you into a machine. The human spirit is not a machine. Being a machine might be comfortable. It is comfortable for a lot of people. There's an amount of surrender and trusting that is necessary. It's necessary. Because we're so compartmentalized mentally. We're mentalized, right? We're chopped up into little bits, put it in little separate boxes, and there's appropriate behavior for every single box. And the human spirit doesn't give two shits about that because it's free. And we're free. We are free. Even within all of this jail cell stuff that's going on here in the realm, we're completely free still. And you find that freedom by being present. And you find it always and always and always. There's not an end to it. The only thing that has beginning and ends is the regimentation, the compartmentalization, the projections, the planning, the retirement funds. The human body has a beginning and the end. Spirit doesn't. Soul doesn't. Soul perhaps does too. That's possibly another artificial construct, because it's involving memories, and memories are removed from the present moment. They're in it, but they're still projections. That was a bit of a ramble, I think. Planning, human planning, when ego-based, when fear-based in any aspect, only creates destruction. It's the only possibility. There is a way to allow plans to present themselves in your mind and play out, and you still stay present. There is a way, but it requires practice. Anywho, hope everybody's doing well as always, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.